Are you a good boy, Chester? Well, hey, vinyl community, Elliot here, Lazy Dogs Records, and my good friend Rachel. She had to take her channel down recently. Rachel, the music ma'am, and some hackers got in there and started messing things up, and let everybody know that she's back on YouTube, and also encourage anyone that didn't subscribe to come back or to join the first time. She's got a contest that involves 3 prompts, and I'll get right to it. I love showing records, and these contests give you a great opportunity to show a variety of records. Because her channel is Rachel's Ghost, she wants us to show a ghost-related album. Cover, a song, a theme in the album, whatever. Easily done, first thing I thought of. The Country Gentleman, Bringing Mary Home. And there's the cover, there is the Ghost of Mary, and Country Gentleman, this is from 1966, somewhat of a, in the Bluegrass circles, a hit song, a very popular song live, being performed live, and popular on all the Bluegrass radio shows. And the first song on side 1 is Bringing Mary Home. It's an urban legend, and it's probably a urban legend all over the world, at least in the United States. I'd always heard this ghost story as taking place on the highway outside of Siler City, North Carolina. You may have heard it wherever you live, it or a similar type story taking place somewhere near your home. But the essence of the story is the fellow's driving down a lonely highway late at night and sees a young girl on the side of the road that appears to be in distress. He pulls over and asks if he can help, and if you'll carry me back home, I'd appreciate it. She gets in the back seat of the car. He drives further up the road. She directs him to where the house is. When he pulls up in front of the house, he goes back to open the door for her, and she's gone. Where did she go? Well, what happened? He has no idea what just happened. He goes to the door. Her mother opens the door. He explains his confusion, and she said, "Thank you for bringing Mary home," and goes on to explain to him that Mary was killed in an automobile accident on the highway 13 years ago, and that on the anniversary of that event, Mary's ghost appears, and you're the 13th person to bring Mary home, and she thanks him and he leaves. The second prompt she had was a comeback. Show an album illustrating revival, renewal, a comeback of some sort. So I'll take one of my favorite musicians, Mr. Ralph Stanley, and speak to you very briefly about his comeback. Now, of course, Ralph Stanley was half of the Stanley brothers and their band, the Clinch Mountain Boys, and they enjoyed success for about 20 years, and Carter passed away in 1966. And Carter was the older brother. He was the extrovert in the group and between the two brothers. And Ralph was much more subdued, much more shy, and so Ralph, handled the bulk of the public work with the band, and he's the one the spotlight was on most of the time in the Stanley Brothers band. And so I'll just read you a little excerpt from the autobiography, Man of Constant Sorrow, My Life and Times by Dr. Ralph Stanley, speaking about this. Of course, you never really get over it, talking about the death of his brother. but you find a way to go on. I can't question the Almighty. It was His will for Carter to pass on and for me to go on. All I could do to try to make the best of it, all I could do was to try to make the best of it. But I didn't really know what to do as far as the music. I was scared to go it alone. I was worried because I didn't know if I could do it by myself. We were more than brothers. We were a team that had been together for 20 years, always together, on stage and off. I didn't know how the people would take to it without Carter. He was the one everybody loved so much. He was the MC, the lead singer, the front man. I didn't know if I had it in me, if I could handle the stage on my own. And I'll move down a little bit in the reading, and it says, then the mail started coming in. I believe we got close to 3,000 letters and cards from Stanley Brothers fans all over the world. They were supportive, telling me not to give up. Don't let us down, and if you quit, you'll let Carter down, and you'll let us down too. Then the phone calls, people telling me, we were behind Carter and you, and now we'll be behind you even more. We've always been Stanley Brothers fans through the years. Now we'll be yours. The support really helped me up, and it helped me stop feeling sorry for myself. I needed to make a living, and music was the only job I knew. There wasn't much else I was qualified to do. I had done the factory work and the farming, and I was no good at it. Nothing else but hard labor, and I never did like that. You couldn't get me near a coal mine or a sawmill. It was going to have to be music. So there's Ralph, the loss of his brother, facing uncertainty, but getting the love and support from the public to go on, and support from those around him to go on. So in 1967, he went back on the road as Ralph Stanley and the Clinch Mountain Boys. And he was well received. He had to work through a lot. The band went through some personnel changes. He had to obviously find someone to replace Carter. And the first one he went with was a great one, a young 18, 19-year-old boy named Larry Sparks. And Larry became the lead singer and lead guitarist for the band. They were long-time recording artists for King Records out of Cincinnati, Ohio. But like many of the artists in the periphery, not in the big, massively popular pop, rock and roll world, they would record albums for different labels, not be exclusive to one. In 67 and 68, he actually, I think it was 4 albums he recorded. He recorded 2 for King Records out of Cincinnati, a great label that they had been on for years, and James Brown was on, Hank Ballard was on, lots of great artists, a variety of different artists were on, and 2 for Jalen Records, which was a record label out of Dayton, Ohio. One of those 2, and it came out in 68, probably recorded in 67, was called The Bluegrass Sound of Ralph Stanley and the Clinch Mountain Boys. That's the original cover. And it's on, it was on, I said, Jalen Records, but this is a Record Store Day repressing. It had never been repressed as a vinyl album since 1968, so that made it hard to find, and so this was the first repressing. It was released in 1980 as an 8-track tape, and 1980 is pretty late even for 8 tracks, probably sold at truck stops and things like that. But this is on Real Music, a division of Good Time Records, and Here it is in Bluegrass green vinyl. Record store day, June 18th, 2022. So he made his comeback. He released several albums, and he went back on the road. He reformed the band, made some changes, and really kind of went to made it more his own. Now, Carter was more of a contemporary. If you can think of the Stanley brothers as in any way being contemporary, but they were for the early 60s. Carter was more of a more comfortable in more contemporary musical settings. Ralph was more comfortable going back to the roots of bluegrass into the mountain music. And when he transitioned from the Stanley brothers to himself as the solo artist, Ralph Stanley, he went deeper into the roots, the mountain sound with the fiddle and things like that. And by the way, this is 1,500 copies made. This is 1217. For those of you that pay attention to that sort of stuff. 1217. Okay. So, comebacks. An uncertain future, that he was able to overcome that fear and get on with it. All right, and our third prompt has to do with Michael at audiophile 45 RPM audiophile. I think I spit that out right. Michael's a great guy. You may watch Michael's videos. He is an audiophile and from Germany. And Rachel wanted to do a tip of the hat to Michael for spurring on many of his subscribers to subscribe to Rachel's channel and bringing her numbers up greatly. So appreciate that, Michael. So in some sort of a nod to Michael, since he's an audiophile, I'll show you a couple of audiophile records. Now, what is an audiophile record? I guess that's a kind of an open-ended question. You have, certain pressing methods, pressing it at 45 RPMs instead of 33 1/3. You've got certain labels that advertise themselves as audiophile, and most of all, if it's advertised as an audiophile record, what do you have? Extra costs. They tend to be much more expensive than just a normal pressing. But what is a normal pressing? Okay. The audiophile records I want to show you were not pressed as audiophile records, but they certainly play as audiophile. If audiophile is a record that brings out so much of the sound that helps to create a sound stage for your listening that that just gives you a super deluxe musical experience. Okay, so this will be interesting, I think. I've got fairly good equipment, what I call fairly good, some others would probably call totally crap. And I mean, others might say, oh wow, what a nice system. But, I don't think anything would qualify for the elite levels of audiophile, although Pinch and Derek said we were all on the spectrum. I don't think I'm halfway across the spectrum. I'm probably on the left side of the spectrum somewhere, getting close to the middle, I guess. But anyway, just by chance, picked this album up, and it turned out to be, a really clean copy, which doesn't mean you're going to get audiophile sound by any means. It's Glenn Campbell's Galveston. I think maybe 1967 or so. Capitol Records. Capitol Records are not necessarily known for great sound, but I cleaned this up and put this record on, and the soundstage on this record was just unbelievable. It was like Glenn was standing a few feet from me singing, and the musicians in the band and the orchestra, when it came in, were on either side of him, and everything stood out. There was separation between the instruments. It wasn't muddled at all, and it blew me away, especially on that song Galveston, great single, And I don't know what it was. I don't have a perfect room. I wasn't sitting perfectly in the center with each speaker strategically placed, to each side of me, the perfect distance, height of speaker, all that stuff. None of that was going on. I was over to one side, actually, of the two speakers, more toward the left speaker than the right. It just did it. It just had it. And what contributed to that, I don't know. This have been recorded with the Wrecking Crew. Glenn was part of the Wrecking Crew. I'm sure they were involved. Of course, the Wrecking Crew is just kind of an afterthought name for them. The studio musicians in Los Angeles that were the A-team, basically. And I'll show you one more. I was in a warehouse of a record collector / flipper. And he doesn't sell retail. He just collects and sells out of his warehouse occasionally and at record shows and things like that. And I came across this one of my favorite artists, Bobby Gentry, Ogden Village. This is like the 6th or 7th copy of Ogden Village I've gotten. I went back there and looked. I've got 4 of them right now, including this one. The other 2 or 3 I've given to friends or family that I thought, this is just such a great album. Here, take this. And they run everything from VG minus to this. And I found this sealed for $2. But sealed doesn't mean anything, does it? It could be great after, again, this was probably, 67 when this came out. But it played. I put it on, and it was just an unbelievable soundstage once again. Much like the Glenn Campbell album. It just blew me away that and this is the stereo version, that it was so full of sparks, fireworks, music. It was just wonderful. And I've listened to this album multiple times, different copies of it. Never heard it, the quality, like I heard, sound quality, like I heard with this one particular copy. Now, what could it be? It was a sealed copy. Maybe they had just replaced the stamper. Maybe the stamper had only printed one. Maybe this was one of the first records used on that stamper, so the stamper didn't have time to wear out. Maybe it was just the best pressing plant where this particular record was pressed. I'm at a loss to explain why this sounds so much more beautiful. And I love this album, but this has got to be what you would call an audiophile recording, because it gives you just a wonderful sound, just a sound far exceeding what you would get from a normal pressing of this album. Bid you folks adieu. I'll just say, if everybody would please remember to be kind to their neighbors, because we're all neighbors in this world. We got to get along.